Well, from that devastation in rural and regional Australia that I talked about to the hoax of wind power, and a hoax it is, let me put it simply, the AEMO is the Australian Energy Market Operator. It is the primary source of reliable operational data in relation to energy, and it says the obvious, that the output of any individual wind farm may vary enormously, and the total wind output, if everything was working, could never meet our energy needs. Worse, the output may fall to zero, or near zero, any time during the calendar year. They've analysed one 6-month period at one wind farm and showed there were 559 intervals of varying length where the output was zero. What are we doing? In one wind farm over 6 months, 38.9% of the output was nil. The wind didn't blow, stupid. The AEMO, Australian Energy Market Operator, provides information on the frequency of a number of types of forced outages. And it's clear that in contrast to wind's demonstrably erratic behaviour, the routine output of a large coal or nuclear plant is very different. The AEMO published data showing, for example, that the brown coal stations in Victoria operate at near constant output, 24/7, 365 days of the year, and they supply a significant proportion of the baseload requirement in eastern Australia. As I've said a million times, the wind thing is a hoax. If you want electricity, if you want it, the baseload has to be supplied continuously and constantly, or where the hell would we be? So to prop up the likely failure of your energy, relying on wind power in a state like South Australia, will cost billions of dollars. An academic report I read last night said this, quote, "On the Eastern Australian grid, it is not possible for wind energy ever to displace dispatchable, reliable generation supplying the baseload demand. In that regard, the proposal by some Australian policymakers to replace major coal-fired power stations with a fleet of wind farms is not technically achievable." And the paper calls it a dangerous strategy. So what are we doing? There was a meeting of the Friends of Collector this week, a little place not far from here, not far from Canberra. The New South Wales government is recommending a 63-turbine wind farm. Again, it's with this mongrel mob, the Planning Assessment Commission. The farm owned by Ratch Australia, who are they? 80% owned by a Thai power generation company. What are we doing to these people in Collector? Barry O'Farrell said he'd return power to local government. Well, the local community are almost 100% opposed. Then you've got Gullen Range wind farm currently being constructed 20 kilometres west of Goulburn. 73 wind turbines. 73 were given approval in 2010. What for? It's expected to begin operating next year. Owned and run by a Chinese company called Gold Wind. Why not? They're subsidised by the taxpayer. Why not? The Upper Lachlan Shire Council has knocked back a request by Gold Wind to run underground cables from the wind farm to the grid. Then you've got the Bodengora wind farm, Wellington, approved by the O'Farrell government in August this year. 40 turbines. I venture to say no one in the O'Farrell government knows anything about wind power. They don't do any reading. It's run by a company called Infigen Energy, which used to be Babcock and Brown. Prison officers from the Maximum Security Wellington Correctional Centre, about 10 kilometres from the wind farm, have raised concerns about the health risks to staff and to inmates. 4 major wind farms proposed around Mudgee and Wellington. The biggest is in Angoola, courtesy of Wind Prospect, who want to build 250 turbines, some as high as 194 metres with a blade length of 65 metres. Then I've had correspondence from the people in the Atherton Tableland, because these poor coots have got no one to speak for them. Mount Emerald Wind Farm on the Atherton Tableland, being developed by Ratch Australia, this Thai mob, more than 70 turbines. 3 kilometres from a newly expanded Lotus Glen Correctional Centre, home to 1,000 inmates and staff. I suppose they don't matter. They're prisoners. Peter Reardon is a property valuer from Goulburn. He's argued the Collector Wind Farm, and indeed the Gullen Range Wind Farm, will result in property values plummeting across the region. In other words, you can't sell your property. John Hegarty's a Sydney lawyer. He's written to the Planning Assessment Commission on behalf of the Friends of Collector. You've got this Planning Assessment Commission, but the members are appointed by the Minister. And as I said yesterday, I'm not sure what planning knowledge they have or what assessment knowledge. Gabrielle Kibble is the chair, and she is very smart on planning matters. But one bloke's a veterinary scientist, another bloke who's been in local government I wouldn't feed, but that's another story. Gary West chaired the meetings at Collector. He was a National Party Member of Parliament for 20 years. He ought to know better. But I suppose he does the bidding of the government that appoints him. There's an architect, there's a casual member, there's a bloke in education, there's a stack of them. with experience in environmental protection. How the hell can these things be approved? I was very angry this week, as you know, with Angus Taylor. He's the new member for Hume. He is no dunce, this bloke. His family are locals. I've known his father for years and years and years. They're cattle and sheep graziers. It's not gilding the lily to say this bloke is an outstanding scholar. Degrees in law and economics and a Rhodes Scholar to Oxford University. And he is allegedly a bright new light in the Abbott team. Back on the 26th of February, when he was a candidate, he said he'd be trying to convince the coalition to reduce its support for green power projects, particularly wind farms, that he said are deeply unpopular with his electorate. He is the member for Hume, which is the member for Collector. Now, I was told he wasn't at the meeting, and I was very critical of him. Then someone rang and told me he was, and I apologised for that. But I just want one question to be answered. Why wasn't he speaking? Angus Taylor, good morning.
Good morning, Alan.
You're now an MP. You're a leader, and you're smart. Why didn't you speak?
Well, Alan, we made the judgment, rightly or wrongly, that this was a day for the people of Collector. And let me tell you, they were unbelievable. They were absolutely outstanding. We heard from a whole range of people across the community, and it was the mouth that roared. So, you know, frankly, they didn't need me. They've heard a lot from me over the last little while. I had a full page in the Golden Post just last week about the property valuation issue, but in front of the pack, we decided it was Collector to
good on you.
To speak.
Good explanation.
I want to congratulate Collector because I was on the edge of my chair right through this time. It was hours and hours, and they were just outstanding. It really was extraordinary. I know this issue backwards. I've known it for 15 years, and I was learning new things. I was seeing things I hadn't seen before from the community. They were just incredible, and I really do want to congratulate them.
Good on you. You've got to concede there's most probably 99.9% of the people in your party and in the federal parliament and in the New South Wales parliament who know, as in your old man's language, bugger all about this. I mean, why are we doing this to people?
Yeah, look, you know, the genius of the scheme that drives these huge subsidies you were talking about before is no one understands it. But I make it very simple. About 50 cents in every dollar received by the wind industry comes through subsidies. And
Say it again.
About 50 cents in every dollar of income that goes to the wind industry comes through these subsidies.
See? Thai people, Thailand, all these foreign outfits. It's unbelievable. Collector 63 of these. I mean, how does government face these people in Collector? Gullen Range wind farm, 20 kilometres west of Gullen, 73 of them. Wellington, approved by Barry O'Farrell, 40 of them. What the hell are we doing?
Yeah, well, look, it's a good question, Alan. You know, I've watched communities now for, as I say, for 15 years become divided. You see family members at war with each other, and what incenses me most is the scale of the subsidy driving this. You know, developments drive division. That happens. We understand that. That's reality. But when 50 cents in the dollar is coming from an unjustifiable subsidy, you say enough is enough.
And is enough enough? I mean, can you persuade your caucus, your backbench, your ministers, or are they saying, Angus Taylor, shut up?
No, look, Alan, I was really delighted that Greg Hunt announced before the election that we're going to review this subsidy scheme.
Yeah, but I mean, this needs to be done yesterday, Angus.
Yeah, look, I hear you, Alan. I understand that, and I wish it was done yesterday. The Labor government decided not to proceed with a review, and we will. And I'm very pleased that Greg did that. Now that being the case,
Angus, and I'm not piddling in your pocket, but you're the hope of the side here. Shouldn't we be finding answers to this stuff before we go sailing along, wasting taxpayers' money and terrifying people in Collector, Gullen Range, Wellington? And we know, I mean, I read last night from a journal, Noise and Health, and this is what it said, 2012, quote, industrial wind turbines are a new source of noise in previously quiet rural environments. Environmental noise is a public health concern, of which sleep disruption is a major factor. Participants living within 1.4 kilometres of an industrial wind turbine had worse sleep, were sleepier during the day, had worse mental component scores compared to those living more than 1.4 kilometres away. The adverse event reports of sleep disturbance and ill health by those living close to industrial wind farms is undeniable. I mean, we're putting people at this kind of risk now.
That's right. And, you know, one of the most compelling things that the community at Collector said to the PAC was, there's going to be a review of this scheme. Why don't you hold off? It just doesn't make sense to get on with this. You know, and frankly, if I was an investor,
yeah,
and I sat through that that PAC session, I would have walked away. There's just no way. Why would any investor want to invest in against the community's wishes and with so many risks?
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Crazy. Well, now look, there was a comprehensive vote on September 7, and I'll tell you what, notwithstanding the difficulties that people face, they're feeling that there's a breath of fresh air out there. You must feel a high sense of responsibility because this nonsense is going on all over Australia. You're a rightful successor to Albie Schultz, who argued comprehensively the kind of things you're saying before you replaced him in the Parliament. There's a spot, anytime you want it here, to say something about this. These people have to be saved.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, you're most welcome. There he is, the Rhodes Scholar, Angus.